This is Doug DeMuro, and today we're going to talk about automotive YouTube, the current state of automotive YouTube. It's been a wild ride the last few weeks and months in the car YouTube world, and today I'm going to give you my thoughts on what's going on and why it's been so controversial in the car YouTuber community. Let's do it. Today's video is sponsored by Cars and Bids, which is my online car auction website for modern enthusiast cars. So far, Cars and Bids has hosted more than 20,000 car auctions of special, cool, and interesting cars like this, and this, and this, and this. So, if you're looking to buy or sell an enthusiast car, do it on Cars and Bids. Okay, so this is a major topic if you follow along car YouTube, and if you're watching one of my videos, you probably do. And it's especially a major topic for me because everybody is always coming up to me on the street and talking to me and asking me about cars, what car should I get, this, that, but very few people really ever want to talk to me about YouTube and the workings of YouTube and the business of YouTube. And as much as I am a car enthusiast, I am also a YouTuber, and so that's a big part of my life as well, beyond just cars. And so I get to talk about cars with everyone all the time, and that's great, but it's rare that I really get to sink my teeth into talking about YouTube and have people care. I'm talking about the algorithm, people get bored. Here's a topic where I think people will actually be interested, which is what the hell's been going on in car YouTube. So, give you a little bit of backstory. A lot of talent is the term we use in this industry. A lot of the creators, the people you see on camera, have been quitting established YouTube channels. They've been on the YouTube channels and then they're saying bye-bye to some of the more prominent car YouTube channels in the space. And this has happened for some reason in a spate of several of these on some very popular channels recently, in specific Donut Media, Hoonigan, Car Throttle, and actually a couple of others as well. And it's been interesting to see it all kind of happening right at once. These creators that we had come to know and love on these channels have been saying goodbye, and in some cases it seems like it might be not so happy of a goodbye. They're leaving and they're not happy, and their previous employers weren't happy, and I don't know the exact circumstances behind each one of them, but it has been interesting to watch this happen, especially as someone who participates in this space. Now, one of the reasons that has been given for the departure of several of the creative people from some of these channels is that some of these channels have been purchased by larger groups, conglomerates, people with money, big decision makers wearing suits, and they want to change things up. And so people who are like in the early stages of some of these companies no longer feel like the creative is really being heard anymore. They have people who are focused on growth and maximizing revenue and dollars and views, and they're not really talking to the creators about how to create. And indeed, that makes sense. And I think in a lot of these cases, that's probably a portion of what's going on, is that these people see this situation kind of unfolding and thinking, okay, now there's some annoying CEO with a, who doesn't understand this space coming in here to tell me how to do my job. I want to be creative. That was why this was fun. It's no longer fun. Now it's a big business. I don't feel creative anymore. I don't want to be any part of this. And I think that that's a real and legitimate part of what's going on here. But the value I'm going to add to this discussion is I think that there's something major missing here that nobody has talked about yet, at least in the videos I've seen explaining exactly what's going on. And that is, YouTube has a tremendously low barrier to entry for people who already have a following. And if I'm somebody who's on the Donut Media YouTube channel getting paid $100,000 a year, and I'm sitting there seeing that the channel is making millions of dollars a year, at some point I start asking myself, why am I taking a salary from a company when I could just go and do this myself? And obviously, if you're Brad Pitt, you can't be like, the movie company's making all this money. Why don't I go make movies? Like, it's hard to make a movie. It's not as hard to make a YouTube video, as you're clearly seeing right now. You can make a YouTube video, and especially you can make a YouTube video if you have a following already. And so what happens to some of these creators is they go on the Donut Medias and the Car Throttles and they build up a pretty big following. And if they're smart, they start to think to themselves, why am I collecting a paycheck and taking some of the revenue when potentially I could go and do this for myself and own the business and take all of the revenue? And so when you think about it, these people who have their own big followings, I checked, and James Pumphrey from Donut has a larger Instagram following than I do. And I've got my own channel, my own businesses, and I'm, that's my world. But he, under the banner of somebody else, has been creating all this content, and he's grown up this huge following. And so I think to myself, there's nothing stopping these creators from making their own channels. And frankly, I don't get, when I look at this space, I don't get why more people don't do this. More people who are on established channels getting paid a salary don't just go out and create their own stuff and own the means of production themselves. As an example, I, as you well know, own a Porsche Carrera GT. It is a very expensive car. Stradman has a Koenigsegg. He runs his own channel and his own empire. Why, again, are some of these guys working for someone else? And I don't necessarily want to get personal here, but I do think to myself, Jason Camisa is an amazing talent who has an amazing ability to provide fantastic insight. If I were Jason, if I were Johnny Lieberman, if I were Matt Watson from CarWow, I'd be sitting there looking at the economics of this and thinking, why am I only taking a cut when I could be taking it all? And obviously, some of the people who have left some of these bigger channels have gone off and in recent weeks started their own channels. And they obviously are looking at the same things I am and coming to similar conclusions. And a lot of these guys, I think, don't want to necessarily come out and say, hey, I look at this whole situation and I could be making more money and owning a larger part of it. I don't think that necessarily would go over that well with the audience. And so instead they say, hey, a private equity came in and has ruined the creative process. And I think there's real truth to that, truthfully. I think that that's probably a good portion of why some of these people are leaving. But you also have to assume that they are thinking that they could probably own the business themselves, given just how large their following is. And I have to say, as a guy who's watching this largely from the sidelines, I love it. I think these guys deserve it. I'm looking at these guys leaving Donut and Car Throttle and starting their own stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, go do it. You deserve this. Start your own thing, own it yourself, go kill it. I am so happy for them. I am so supportive. You can do this. And I really, really, really believe that. As someone who's kind of appreciates his honored role as the grandfather of car YouTube, where everybody's comes to me and asks me strategy questions. I really support these guys going and doing this. I think it's fantastic. I love it, and I'm super, super happy about it. And ultimately, I think one of the most interesting things that no one is really discussing is that this will probably always happen to this space. When the barrier to entry for starting a YouTube channel is as low as it is, you need a Gmail account and a camera, and an idea, but when the barrier to entry is as low as it is, you're always gonna run into this problem. A creator is gonna get too big to be just paid as an employee. They're gonna sit there and say, I could be making more doing this myself. And they will eventually start their own thing. And I think that that's kind of the problem with corporations buying YouTube channels, which is if you want to run a YouTube channel and employ creators, these creators will eventually find a following of people who love them. And those creators will eventually start to wonder why they're not just creating themselves. Like I said, Brad Pitt is not going to go out and just make a movie himself with a camera in the jungle, but James Pumphrey, who everybody loves, right? He's a tremendously positive personality. I've met him. I think he's super cool. He could do that. He could go into the jungle and take a camera and make a YouTube channel. And a lot of his audience would follow him there, and suddenly he owns the production instead of Donut Media, or so-and-so instead of Hoonigan, or so-and-so instead of Car Throttle, or whatever you want to say, instead of Jalopnik, the Autopian. I mean, there's a lot of these examples out there. And the problem when you're owning a YouTube channel as a business is that these creators don't have an enormous reason to stay once their audience gets huge unless they're being paid an enormous amount of money, because there are some things that are hard about running a YouTube channel, like filming the videos, editing the videos, you know, thinking up ideas, creating thumbnails. Like there's a lot to it, but it's not insurmountable. However, for the right dollar amount, you'd probably just rather be the guy on camera and then walk away at the end of the day. But that dollar amount has to be pretty close to the overall total dollar amount being made. And I think at some point, YouTube channels just have to look at themselves, people who own YouTube channels, and say, we can't compete with someone who has an audience of 1 million people on Instagram who are going to follow these people over to their own YouTube channels. And so that's the situation. And I think that situation is really not being discussed. And I don't know if I shouldn't say it, if it's like the quiet thing that's not being said, but I really truly believe that that while the creativeness being stifled is probably a part of these guys leaving, I think they also look at the Stradmans of the world with their Koenigseggs and the Doug with his Carrera GT and think to themselves, why am I getting paid? Like, I have as big of an audience as these guys do, but they run it themselves, whereas I am just an employee. And I think that that is a totally reasonable thing to think. And frankly, if I'm being totally honest, go rock it. Like, do that. Even if it means I get less views because now these guys have gone and started their own channel, pulled some viewers away, you deserve it. You deserve to get those views. You deserve to go and rock it and start your own thing and kill it and do well. To be frank, it's a big risk. And I'm no stranger to taking a big risk. I left a real job to start a YouTube channel 10 plus years ago, and that was a big risk. And while I had my YouTube channel, launched a car auction website, which was a big risk. And both of those things worked out great for me. And I am a serious believer in when you can take a risk on yourself and you really believe in it, then you should do that. And I'm thrilled to see these guys taking this risk. And I want to be supportive in any possible way that I can because I truly believe in what they're doing. And I believe in the fact that they should own the means of production. They should own their business and their likeness if they're gonna generate such a large audience. And I think that you should follow them to their new channels and their new Instagram, but whatever they have to create. I really think that it's absolutely worth it because I think at the core, that's what's going on here, is that these guys are saying to themselves, I don't really understand why I'm taking a paycheck when I could be just killing it on my own. And again, it's risky. It may not pay off, but I really, really hope it does for these creators. And I think that underlying all of the other stuff being talked about is that fundamental issue. And whether I think other creators should do the same thing, maybe. I mean, I think it makes sense. I don't want to sow division in the Car Wow world or the Haggerty Jason Camisa world, but it seems to me like that would be a smart thing for basically any creator out there to do once they have a sufficient following that makes it make sense for them to kind of go do it themselves. And I promise you that working for someone else on a YouTube channel or any other business is never going to be as exciting, as rewarding, and as potentially lucrative and successful as doing it on your own. And so I couldn't have greater respect for people who realize that, who take that leap. And I think that's what a lot of these people have done in the car YouTube space lately. And I think that's one of the big things that's going on in the car YouTube space. So with that in mind, I'm super supportive, stay supportive, and I think you should be as well. And I'm curious to see how it all plays out. And I hope it works out great for all of these guys. Go kill it. You deserve it.